Coming up on the Arts Connection. Come on in, the garden is open. We head to Central Florida's first tourist hotspot. Plus, where can aspiring writers go to be inspired?
People have been making good work here. It's really inspiring.
And we belly up to the bar at the newly renovated Cheyenne Saloon.
I just hope the people out there that experienced it before will grace us again and come see us again.
All that and more just ahead on the Arts Connection.
The Arts Connection is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to WMFE from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Arts Connection, your program about all things creative here in Central Florida. I'm Cecily Wilson and we're coming to you from Cypress Gardens Adventure Park in Winter Haven. And before there was Disney or Universal, there was Cypress Gardens. It was Central Florida's first tourist attraction, founded in 1936 by Dick and Julie Pope. And since then, its beautiful gardens have been the backdrop for those iconic Southern bells greeting guests at the front gates. We're going to explore this natural beauty of Florida, so stay with us. But first, let's step into the beauty of the Manello Museum. It's one of Orlando's uncovered treasures. It's also home to the largest collection of works by folk artist Earl Cunningham, a gift given to the city of Orlando by the museum's namesake, Marilyn Manello. Tucked away along the quiet banks of Lake Formosa and Lock Haven Park sits the graceful and peaceful Manello Museum of American Art. Filled with extraordinary works of art, it's perhaps not a place you would link to folk art due to its evolving mission.
It was founded as a folk art museum, and then our board 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, decided that there was a limited market, so it's now the Manello Museum of American Art.
But since 1998, it's folk artist Earl Cunningham's work that has been a highlight of the museum's collection and the foundation for what would become the Manello Museum of American Art.
It's really a benchmark now. People are coming from all over the country to see the works of Earl Cunningham and also our other great collections that we have.
It was Marilyn Manello's insightful artistic prowess that brought Cunningham, a relatively unknown artist decades ago, to the forefront.
She was visiting St. Augustine and she walked into his shop, and while they passed the window, it said, "These paintings are not for sale." So she went back in and she met Earl Cunningham. He sold her a painting. She arranged the first exhibit at the Orlando Museum of Art.
That was in 1970, and it was the beginning of Marilyn's mission to make Cunningham a household name.
The collection was really supposed to go to Tallahassee, and when Mayor Glenda Hood found out about it, she called my wife and said, "You know, you guys are from Orlando, even though you live in Winter Park, and the collection can't go anyplace but here." She thought he was a genius, and he is a genius. He's been compared to Matisse and Van Gogh.
Just as the work of Matisse and Van Gogh became sought after by collectors, Marilyn started collecting Cunningham's work. In fact, the Manellos hold the largest permanent collection of his work. Marilyn died in 2006, leaving behind a legacy that is getting national attention by being featured at the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C.
Her dream was always, and also Cunningham, told her in 1969 that he wanted his paintings in a museum of his own, and that's been realized. It started out as a small museum, and now we're nationally known, and with the Smithsonian exhibit, we will become an international museum.
It was the Manellos' passion and dedication for Cunningham's paintings that gained the attention of the Smithsonian. No one could have imagined that type of national and international recognition would put a local museum like Manello on the map. But it has, and at a recent commemoration, local supporters gathering to pay tribute included Clarence Otis, CEO of Darden Restaurants.
We've got a lot of things that we can be proud of. We want to enrich the cultural scene here. and this museum helps do that.
Marilyn Manello's contributions to the arts community span 44 years. She was the chairman of the Cultural Affairs Committee for the City of Orlando. She founded a volunteer group for 101 Women for the Lock Haven Arts Center, which is now the Orlando Museum of Art. So it's not hard to understand why Marilyn Manello has been called a champion for the arts. Some even call her the First Lady of the Arts, helping to change the way people view art.
She and Michael are probably two of the people that have promoted folk art and made Orlando a hub for folk art. But I'll tell you this, even for a non-cultured mayor like me, it's transformed me into a folk art connoisseur.
She was a star in the community, and those of us who knew her knew that she did that for our community. She lit up the arts. I think our community has reached critical mass, and we're really starting to see that the arts are important for the vitality of our community.
This star, designed by Albert Paley and placed outside of the museum in early 2008, was dedicated to Marilyn Manello in honor of her commitment and legacy to the arts.
The star is a wonderful tribute to Marilyn. I think the star tells us what she was really all about to this community.
Museums around the country hold stories of human history and culture. The story at the Manello Museum is one of passion, dedication, and commitment of one woman who had a vision of art.
It's really been a wonderful venture for her dreams have been realized.
Now her husband, Michael, says her legacy is one he plans to continue.
We're planning to add 25 to 30,000 square feet. We really want an educational center. We want this to become one of the major American museums. And we're on our way. It's remarkable what we have done in less than 10 years.
10 years of success and going strong as a showcase for American artists. If there's anything that's synonymous with the Manello Museum, it's Marilyn, her love for the arts, and her vision to see something great in a folk artist like Earl Cunningham. The Cunningham exhibit is a permanent exhibit. For a list of all other exhibits, simply check out our website. Well, here's something else you'll want to check out if you haven't done so already. Casa Feliz. Over the years, this historical home has caused quite a stir in the Winter Park community. Kristen Kinney tells us why as she takes us on a tour of this local landmark.
Tucked away on the Winter Park golf course sits an architectural gem that looks like something right out of 15th century Spain. Welcome to Casa Feliz, or Happy House, a 1933 farmhouse built by Winter Park's pioneer architect James Gamble Rogers. A home that's as rich in Spanish architecture as it is heritage.
It was the crown jewel of his residential architecture, the richest legacy really that he left in the city of Winter Park.
A legacy that has survived 75 years because of community enthusiasm for this uniquely crafted home.
Written on the back of this, built by J.N. Chestnut, Daytona Beach, Florida, February 24th, 1933. This was the carpenter. And these folks were so proud of what they were doing, they actually signed their work. And we saw this everywhere.
If there's one person who can speak about the legacy of this house, it's Jack Rogers, the son of the renowned architect.
It really, of course, started with the work that my father did on the house in 1933.
It was at that time when Winter Park resident Robert Bruce Barber commissioned Rogers to design a home on Lake Osceola, offering him unheard of freedom for an architect.
He said, well, I'm Mr. Barber, Robert Bruce Barber, and I'd like you to design a house for me. If I don't like it, I'll sell it. And so my father described that as an architect's dream come true, you know, which indeed it was.
The result? A two-story, 6,000 square foot whitewashed brick structure, complete with an interior courtyard and handcrafted Spanish tile roof. A work of art Mr. Barber not only liked, but lived in until his death in 1950. Casa Feliz remained a private residence, owned by 5 different families for the next 50 years. And it wasn't until 2000 when this architectural gem faced its biggest threat: demolition.
We didn't know that the house was about to be destroyed. It had just been sold, and there was no understanding that this was intended. So when the first corner went down with the swing of the ball, the town rose up in arms.
Community residents like Polly Seymour rallied on the streets, doing all they could to prevent Casa Feliz from becoming only a distant memory. The citizens won the first battle. The city stopped the demolition and the house was safe. But the catch? It needed to be moved 900 feet to the Winter Park golf course. Now that doesn't sound that far, but it was a far from simple task.
And they winched the house along, maybe 10 or 15 feet an hour or something like that. Just about like watching paint dry.
This house, weighing 750 tons, now that's 1.5 million pounds, resulted in one of the most dramatic events in Winter Park's history.
The fact that it was moved attracted a huge amount of media attention. We had bleachers, we had a Dixieland band. It just captured the imagination.
It's this sense of community spirit and pride that has helped reinvigorate this almost lost treasure. Once Casa was positioned in its new location, volunteers lined up to bring back its glory.
I thought it might be an opportunity for me to do something I enjoy doing, which is construction, working in old homes, and give something back to the community.
Winter Park resident and contractor Frank Rourke dedicated his time to lead a team of volunteers.
If you look over here, this is the bell tower. You'll see the bell up there, and just to the left of the tower and slicing down diagonally, that whole corner had been knocked off by a bulldozer, and this had to be reconstructed, and including the bell tower.
Highly skilled artisans and craftsmen spent years restoring its authenticity, bringing in elements of design that trace back centuries.
These tiles were already almost 100 years old. They were made in Spain over the traditional way in which clay is taken over the thigh of the worker and bent to form the barrel shape that you see. And we had to replace some of the tiles, but there is no place that you can go out and buy 100-year-old tiles of this shape and size. We were very fortunate to find an old house in Spain that was being demolished with 100-year-old tiles. So it did take us longer than we originally projected, but I have to say it was really one of the finest experiences of my life, the team that we worked with, and it was a team experience.
An experience that took 4 years, but proved to pay off. In 2005, Casa Feliz opened its doors to the public as a museum and rental space, thanks to those who lended a helping hand.
Now that it's here and so much in use, it comes to life every time there is a group of people here, and that's of course very frequently.
And as visitors pass through, they're reminded not only of the architectural splendor, but also community devotion.
This really does, again, speak to the spirit of the builder.
A similar spirit that traces back 75 years, a spirit that keeps its heritage alive.
Such an amazing story to see so much passion going into preserving our past. Well, if you're just joining us, then you may not be surprised to know that we're joining you from beautiful Cypress Gardens, Florida's first theme park. They're known for their famous ski shows and, yes, the beautiful botanical gardens. And we're joining you now from the Topiary Garden. And Nancy Daly is a part of that History of the World famous ski team to tell us more about what you did. You got paid to have a lot of fun.
Yes, I started water skiing here in 1978, and I was a water skier through the 80s and the 90s, and we got to travel all over the world putting on shows for people. And the ski team is involved with over 50 world record firsts. During that time, we had the 9-man ramp flip, and we worked on the 4-tier pyramid, and the 5-tier pyramid happened during the 80s. And we've always aspired to be the first in the world to do different things in the water skiing world.
Yeah, and those pyramids are iconic, if you will. And you were on the second level?
I would be usually on the second level in the center, which means I would have 2 girls standing on my shoulders and another one who would stand up and climb up on their shoulders.
Okay, that took a lot of skill, huh?
Well, we did a lot of practicing over the years and had a lot of falls while we were learning, and then after a while we would do it every day in the ski show 4 times a day, and it was a really amazing feat.
Now, we're in the Topiary Gardens. There's a lot of skill and talent and artistry that goes into these beautiful botanical gardens. Tell us more about that.
Well, this area was expanded into the park in the early 1970s, and it's maintained by our horticulture department, and they do a really beautiful job.
Yeah, and you've also added something else as the garden continues to grow.
Well, our most recent expansion was the rides area. We have 40 rides now, and Splash Island Water Park, which was added last year. And it's also part of your admission price when you come in, which happens to be about half of what it is for most other theme parks.
Now there's a ticket. Thank you, Nancy, for telling us all of that information. Of course, if you'd like more information on Cypress Gardens, simply log on to our website. Well, up next, there's one local man whose passion for historical literature has inspired him to open the doors of the former home of famed author and poet Jack Kerouac to aspiring contemporary writers.
Frankly, Orlando could call itself the Kerouac corridor for all of the stuff he did here and the extremely important time that he spent here. People should take pride in that.
This is the second of 3 houses he lived in here. He was here in 1957 with his mom in the back porch apartment. That's where he wrote Dharma Bums.
And thank goodness for the grassroots group of people who came together when they did in 1997 to raise the funds necessary to save this place.
I was very excited that there's a literary legacy here in my neighborhood where I grew up. My mother and myself, along with the Hagedorns, put down some of the seed money in order to buy the house initially. And so that got it started.
It was in really bad shape. It was run down. It was dark. It was a wonderful thing that this all came together when it did.
It's both preservation of the past and also a living legacy to Jack Kerouac.
His real name is Jean-Louis Lebris de Kerouac, and his family is from Canada, and he actually spoke French before he knew English. They moved to Orlando in 1956 when he had done a lot of writing, but he wasn't famous at all. He'd had one book published at the time called The Town and the City, published in 1950. And so he moves here and he's pretty much destitute. He's 35 years old, he's twice divorced. Even his family doesn't take him all that seriously. That all changed during the period that he actually lived in this house.
I think he wrote Dharma Bums in about 11 days, so he just holed up back there.
Then in 1957, On the Road gets published. It gets this incredible write-up in the New York Times. They compare Kerouac to Hemingway, and they say Kerouac is the voice of this so-called beat generation, just like Hemingway was the voice of the lost generation. On the Road is considered a classic. There's just so much exuberance about the American West and all these different places that it resonates today, and the book just goes on and on, generation to generation. When you look at that sort of cramped little back porch area the way it is now, it certainly was not that way then. This was a very meager existence, and I think there's something very compelling about that in the Kerouac story, that even though he was living practically penniless, he never lost his passion for what he did. And I think there's a message there for people not to get discouraged, for artists like him.
We're using it in a manner that is inspiring to new writers who are able to come here and really be nurtured and encouraged along their careers.
I am one of the writers in residence. There's 4 a year. We each come down for 3 months. It's wonderful. It's the first time I've ever had a chance just to write. I'm actually doing most of my writing where the kitchenette used to be. But every so often when I need to unplug, I'll go back into his little bedroom with a pad of paper. It's really peaceful back there, and it's a little monastic, but good. I'm working on a novel and a collection of short stories. It's going to be called Scrub, and it's a group of characters that are all kind of hard up and looking for forgiveness and seeking it and granting it. I'm a painter as well, and I see things very visually. Writing a book, writing a novel, is such a hard thing to do. I did it once and I'm looking forward to doing it again, but to know that it's been done here. You know, it was done by Jack Kerouac, but it was also done by 21 writers before me. Whether or not they wrote novels, that people have been making good work here is really inspiring.
Really helps them form their identity, along with having a lot of time for them to work on their projects uninterrupted.
That's what we're looking to do here, the gift of time. Hopefully this is a little bit of a historic literary touchstone in the community. And people should know outside Orlando that there is more than the tourism hotspots. That if you look a little deeper into the other Orlando, there is a rich and wonderful history here, and Kerouac is a big part of that.
It's nice to see so much inspiration coming from a landmark. You can learn more about the Kerouac Project at our website. Well, I hope you have your dancing shoes on. We're getting ready for a little two-stepping at a downtown Orlando historical landmark. Now, you may be familiar with the Cheyenne Saloon. For years, it was shut down, and now it's being restored to its former opulence. And once you step inside, it's sure to bring you back to the old wild, wild west. Jessica Sanchez caught up with developer Bob Snow just as he was getting ready to open the doors again.
Here we go.
This is the Cheyenne Saloon and Opera House. This was built from 1980 to 1982.
If the walls could talk, you'd hear some great stories here. Some you'd want to tell your mother and others you wouldn't.
Some of the most fun I've ever had, and wonderful experiences on this stage, you know.
It was fantastic up there. We had almost 3 million people a year coming through Church Street Station.
It is the first time in 6 years that a sweet country western melody has echoed through the Cheyenne Saloon and Opera House.
I swear I missed this place for a long time. I really did.
Yes, and
It's something to see, you know, being empty like this. Kind of, you can still hear the crowd. It's kind of the ghost of the crowd here. Never goes away.
There was a standing line to get in from about 7 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was for probably the first 2 weeks that we were open.
It was exactly what developer Bob Snow envisioned in 1967 when he sold his vintage Porsche for $1,500, gathered support from others, and set out to create an urban hotspot that was proud to be 75 years behind the times.
An opera house that was converted into a saloon.
Define those terms. A saloon, you think of guys standing 4 deep at the bar. Opera house, you think of Miss Kitty walking down the stairs with her girls and the band, the piano player playing the rinkety piano. Well, it was that, but it was upscale.
Like a great Western Grand Ole Opry. And we had all the very top entertainers who've ever played country music and played here.
Every time you come around.
And it would take us sometimes 10 minutes just to get to the backstage room because it was just a sea of people partying and having a great time. And then you'd take the stage and you'd see these faces like looking at you.
All the way to the 3rd floor, and the awesome you know, energy that was in the room when this place was full, which was most every night. It was just an entertainer's dream come true.
It's an event every time you come in, and you know, then you hear this like voice of God coming from the rafters going, ladies and gentlemen.
Gentlemen, the First Lady of Country Music, Miss Tammy Wynette.
Man, getting goosebumps thinking about it, you know.
Oh, welcome to my world. Won't you come on in?
And we had a huge following. It was the #1 Nielsen rated show at the Nashville Network.
Welcome to the City Beautiful, Orlando, Florida, home of Church Street Station.
But the glitz and glamour of the 80s would have a hard time keeping up in the 90s. Church Street was no longer the only hotspot in the Orlando night scene. The Cheyenne Saloon and Opera House closed its doors in 2001 and has remained virtually untouched, just a memory of what it used to be. And you can see that over the years, dust has accumulated on the tables and chairs. The Cheyenne Saloon remains today much the way it did in 1982, as if knowing it would one day be restored to the splendor of days past.
I just hope the people out there that experienced it before will grace us again and come see us again.
I think that I hope I get to play here again, but if I don't, then I'll be leaning on the bar, because I'll be here.
Cheyenne Saloon is open Tuesdays through Saturday with nickel beer nights on Wednesday. See, I told you you'd be ready to hit the dance floor. Well, that wraps it for us here on The Arts Connection at beautiful Cypress Gardens at Venture Park in Winter Haven. We certainly hope you have enjoyed our program, so make sure that you tune in to us June 26th when we return. In the meantime, don't forget to check us out on the web. You can view all of the podcasts there or get information about any of the stories that you've just seen. And don't forget, Becky Morgan's on The Arts Connection radio program, 90.7 on your FM dial. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you June 26th. Bye.